All right, this is Precalculus lesson 1-3. Today's date is August 30th, 2019. All right, so before we begin the homework, make sure that you finished all the stuff from yesterday. So if I come back over here and go to the Precalculus guide, today we're doing adding and subtracting complex numbers, which means you have the quiz done. I think everyone finished in class, so no summaries to check. Did you update your unit guide? Let's check. Looks like almost everyone updated their unit guide. I'm recording this video at 10:20 p.m., so maybe she finished her unit guide later. But let's go ahead and I guess what are we going to be doing after the 3-day weekend? When we come back from the 3-day weekend, we'll do lesson 1-4 on Tuesday, which means we have a quiz on Wednesday, just as a heads up. All right, so we're coming back to our notes right now. Our objective for today, well, the title is adding and subtracting complex numbers. This is nothing new. We did this in Algebra 2. I think it was like Algebra 2, Unit 2, Lesson 3. Our objective is to add and subtract complex numbers, both algebraically and graphically. All right, so the general rule to remember from last year is when you're adding the real parts to the what parts and the imaginary parts with the what parts, you can probably tell by the size of these that it's going to be the same word. Add real parts with the real parts, and add the imaginary parts with the imaginary parts. It's very similar to adding like terms. So the imaginary parts, anything with an I in it is like terms with anything with an I in it. Anything that doesn't have an I in it, add those together. So let's do an example. I'm going to add these two complex numbers. This is one complex number, a second complex number. Let's go ahead and add negative 71 to 88. That's going to be 17. Let's go ahead and add 7i and negative 10i. That's going to be negative 3i. It is that simple. It's nice and easy. Let's go on to example number 2. Same thing, except you need to now distribute this negative. So the easiest way to show that you distributed, the fastest way is to change all of the signs. It's that easy. Okay, so changing all of the signs means what you're really doing here is you're distributing negative into each of these terms. It's just a quick way of showing it. So now that I've distributed the negative, I am going to come back here and say 31 plus 11, that's going to be 42. 42, and negative 12i plus 6i is a negative 6i. Final answer. All right, on to number 3. So this is the algebra. That's the half of the objective. Now I need to do the graphical adding and subtracting. I have 2 examples for adding and subtracting. First example for adding, second example for, this is all subtraction really. So this is the only one that we have for adding. This one is a little bit difficult, but I think the easiest way to do these is to think of what the coordinates are saying. Z1 is 3 plus 2i, so this is 3 plus 2i. And then this Z2 is equal to negative 6 plus 3i plus 3i. And we can always go back to the algebra if you want. You can say, okay, if I'm adding them together, it's going to be negative 6 plus 3, which is going to be a negative 3. I'll do this in orange. So I'm here on the real axis, and how far up or down do I go? Well, 3i plus 2i is 5i, so I'm going to come all the way up here to 5i, and there's my answer. And you can even say what that is if you really want, which is going to be negative 3 plus 5i. But you really just need to be able to graph that point, especially on Khan Academy. You just drag around a point. All right, so we're good. Let's come down here, plot Z1 minus Z2. This is a little bit harder, but essentially it boils down to take the negative of Z2. What is the negative of Z2? That's the equivalent of rotating this Z2 180 degrees around the origin, which is right there. And if you can see where that is visually, that is super awesome because that's the trick. You can think of it as I went left 6, up 3, then you're going to go right 6, down 3, and then you have the opposite. So this is now 6 minus 3i. This point right here is going to be 6 minus 3i. And you can see if we distribute a negative, our original point was negative 6 plus 3i. If I were to distribute a negative into that, it turns it into a positive 6 minus 3i, which is positive 6 minus 3i, rotating 180 degrees around the origin. Now that I have my new point, then I'm going to just add it, because now that I've distributed negative, it's just 2 points adding them. So as long as you've mastered adding, then you're ready to go. So I'm adding 3 plus 6, which is going to be 9. So it's going to come out here to, I'll use green here, to 9. And how far up and down? Well, 2i and negative 3i is negative 1i, and there's my point. And if you really want to label it, you can. You can say this is 9 minus I. Okay, we are on to example number 5. Plot z3 minus z4. So again, if I have negative z4, I need to rotate this 180 degrees. So instead of right 5, down 3, it's going to be left 5, up 3. There's my rotated z3. I'm going to call this point negative z4, because that's exactly what it is. It's z4, but negative. Then I'm going to add these two. I'm going to add negative z4, adding negative z4 to z3. When I do that, if I went left 4 and then left 5, adding negative 4 and negative 5 gives you negative 9. And then finally, if I went up 1, up 3, I'm going to go up 4. I'm just adding this height to this height. That's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, right there. All right, and I'm going to call this point z3 minus z4. Perfect. All right. Now I'm going to do it the other way. I need to find negative z3. Where is negative z3? So instead of going left 4, up 1, it's going to be right 4, down 1. This point right here is negative z3. Well, I now need to add negative z3 to z4. So negative z3 plus z4, well, it's going to be 4 plus 5, which comes out to 9. And if I go down 1, down another 3, that's going to be down 4. And this is going to be, I'll label it, this is z4 minus z3. Is there anything, I mean, we're done with the notes, but I'm curious, is there anything that you notice about z3 minus z4 and z4 minus z3? If you thought, hey, it's a 180 degree rotation, you are correct. Can anyone explain why? If anyone said, well, 180 degree rotation is the same thing as multiplying by a negative 1, that's exactly what you're doing. Let's check it out here. So what would happen if I had a negative times z4 minus z3? That turns into a negative z4 plus z3. And if I switch those, which you're allowed to do because it's the commutative property of addition, I have z3 minus z4, which is, hey, z3 minus z4. That's what it is, except it's multiplied by negative 1. Kind of cool. So you can always check your work that z3 minus z4 and z4 minus z3 are the same, just with the 180 degree rotation around the origin. Cool, so that's all I have for you guys. I know it was kind of quick. You should be working on the homework on Khan Academy. Don't do your summary, do that over the 3-day weekend. I do hope you have a nice 3-day weekend. I will see you on Tuesday.